Today I'm at Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area in Stewart County, Tennessee. This recreational area expands even into Kentucky because there's approximately 170,000 acres included in this area. Between 1964 to 68, all the residents were forced to leave this area so they could make it into a recreational area. That is, all the residents were forced except one man, and I'm here today to see the house where he lived at. This man would refuse to be moved from his homestead, even though it really no longer was his, as the government owned it. And I'm talking about Sanford Cleo Griffin, and he went by just the name of Cleo. This location is actually near Dover, Tennessee, but at one time when they were forced to move out of this area, the little town or community was called Model, Tennessee, which exists no more. We've pulled over to give you an idea of just where that the home we're going to be looking for is today, and thought this would be a very good place because it has something that you'll certainly recognize as you go by it. It's the Great Western Furnace, and this was built in 1854, and there's several of these iron furnaces throughout this area here or close by. But what I'm really looking for is to let you know how you will find the home that is still in existence right now, and they're trying to get up enough money and agreement to save this house before it's completely destroyed, is that of Mr. Cleo Griffin. As we get closer to the main road there, you will notice there is a road going to the left, of course, and one to the right. The one close to the furnace on the right, and you see looks like a little white or pale green sign there, is the road that we'll be taking today to see Cleo Griffin's house. Since we made this stop, I will give you just a view of the one side of the marker here, because we're really here to see Cleo's house today. But this will just give you an idea that this only ran for like 2 years, and it was due to lack of the ore they had, and so it's the best of the furnaces in this area. We've made our turn next to the iron furnace there, and now we're headed to see the house. And while we're on our way there, because it's just a little ways up the road here, I'd like to mention that I said this was once Model, Tennessee. It was also called the land between the rivers at that time because of being by the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. It got the land between the lakes name when in 1944 the TVA would do a man-made Kentucky lake. And in 1964, which is 20 years later, the U.S. Corps of Engineers would make the man-made Lake Barkley. So now it is known as Land Between the Lakes, and the locals call it just LBL. As you can see, we're traveling on a gravel road, and it's got some rough ridges in it at spots and even little washed out areas here. And it is hard to believe that anyone would want to live in such a wilderness all by themselves for a long period of time and be secluded from everyone else. Well, I'm beginning to see a glimpse of the house there off at a distance, and it's approximately, I guess, maybe a mile off the road or the main part that was paved there where we turned by the furnace. And so we'll take a closer look at this old house. Well, we've parked the car, and now we are headed up toward what is the remains of Cleo's home place. And there's a lot to tell about this, and be telling you all I can here at the house about Cleo. But we're going to try to go to the graveyard where he's buried, which is just a little farther down the road after we visit this, if it's passable, because some of the roads are not as passable in this area as you'd like them to be. As you can see, it's all fenced in. It's an archaeological site they've got here, and they are in the process of talking about it being restored, but it looks like it may be beyond that. And it is definitely in a wilderness type area. It's hard to believe that Cleo would not move from this home. As I mentioned earlier, this land was taken over and made into a recreational area, national park. The land between the lakes, it's called. And it was came about when John F. Kennedy flew over in 1963 and saw this and said it would be a good area to make that in. Well, at that time, the TVA took over, and in 1964, they started getting everyone to either move their houses or they would destroy them, because the TVA was giving them some money, I don't know how much, for their land or their house, you might say, the combination, and they had to move. And there was a lot of resentment because the families didn't want to move. There was over 3,000 or right at 3,000 people that would be involved. Of course, that includes children and all. They said it was a little over 900, I think, households that was to be demolished or moved from here. And this one has a big time story, as Cleo said he was not going to move. You got to take into consideration that Cleo had been in World War II, and it said that he came back from shell shock. And he just is not going to want to be moved from this house. This is the house he was born in and lived in all his life, you might say. I guess he did live in barracks when he was in tents or whatever when he was in the military, but this was what he called home and wanted to come back to. And as we go up the steps, I want to say a couple of things about this house. It's a nice size house. It's was 9 rooms, and it also had a different type roofing on it that caught my eye when I saw it. If you'll look, we'll try to get a little closer to it if we can. It's like a scallop shell type tin roof on it. And as you can see, it says there's no trespassing, and of course it's fenced in, you can't get in. But I want to point out a couple of things here. As you see, there's an old dried up wreath, I should say, and it is what they would have put on at Christmas time for veterans. And it's hard to believe, since no one lives in this area, that they did come up here and at least honor Cleo Griffin with a wreath. Next, you see a little flowers here. Of course, it's artificial, but it reminds you of springtime, and that's what it is now here. It's getting to be middle of April. And I'm going to try to get my gimbal over a little bit closer where we can see a little bit more of the house over the fence if I can. Don't know. I'm so short, and I don't know how well this is going to be taken. May have to cut it out altogether when I start editing the video. This porch looks like it's just all but gone, so it's very hard to think that they're going to be able to save this place, but what a wonderful story it has to tell. When I was doing research for this video, I saw pictures of a lot of the residents that lived in this area, and these were the ones that were protesting, didn't want to be moved out of this area. I don't think any of those pictures actually had Cleo in them, but they had a lot of signs held up, such as TVA, get out, don't make us tear down our house, don't make us move, things like that. They were protesting because a lot of them had lived here all their life. Their families, their grandparents, and several generations had lived in this area. And a lot of them had large farms, and they were farmers, and that's all they knew. And they didn't know what they were going to do if being moved out of this area. However, no one was willing to stand the ground that Cleo Griffin did. He just was not going to move from here no matter what. And this is a home that he was born in, as I said, but he had a little brother that was born here, and I think he died when he was about 2 years old. He did have a sister and brother that was also raised here, and they did live to adulthood. His brother ended up being a master sergeant in the Air Force and is buried in the Veterans Cemetery in Memphis, Tennessee. His sister lived in the Dover area, and she has ended up being buried down in the main cemetery that's in Dover, Tennessee. But Cleo and his mother and dad, little brother, and so many more relatives are buried in a cemetery that's just a short ways from this home. I found a newspaper article, too, that actually had a good bit of information on it, as well as a picture of Cleo standing on this front porch, and I'm going to insert that here. The newspaper article mentioned a few things. That it said that Cleo did let them tour the 9-room house, that this was 175 acres of property, and that Cleo had never married. One thing that really caught my attention in this article was it made mention that there was a piece of soiled cardboard that was tacked to the wall near the screen door bearing the handwritten mark TVA S/215. And that's remarkable since he left it up all these years, because it had been almost 10 years since everyone else had moved out of the area. It is said that Cleo was addressed numerous times by the officials for the TVA and all that he should be moving out, and he still refused, even though they said the property was TVA's and had that cardboard writing up there by the door and all saying it was TVA's. He would not move. His family members actually tried to encourage him to move because everybody else was gone from this area, and they built him a house down in Dover, Tennessee, which is about, I guess, 15 to 20 miles from here. And it was a nice little brick house, and he would not agree to that. They took him there, I think, a time or two. At least once it was said that he walked back the 16 to 20 miles to get back to this house. He was not ready to leave it. After several years with the TVA trying to get him to move, the Veterans Affairs finally got involved, and with Cleo being a veteran and having post-traumatic stress disorder, they got them to agree to leave him alone and let him live here. Well, a little bit more about Cleo, and he did live in this wilderness area, and you might say he lived here alone for like maybe a little over 20 years, because by 1968, everybody, I think, was already out of the land between the lakes area here that they'd made for this project, except Cleo. And he wouldn't leave here until it got in such bad health in like 1989, I believe it was said. His brother was ended up being a master sergeant in the United States Air Force, so I have a feeling he was living off and everything. But he had a sister that lived here in Dover. And in that same 1973 article, she mentioned that they had a cousin, and I'll put her name up on the picture and when I edit it, and that cousin would come up like 3 times a week, and of course he didn't have the running water, fresh water, so she'd bring water and cook foods for him and do a little house cleaning and that kind of stuff for him 3 times a week. The article also mentioned that her husband would come up occasionally too and do haircuts for Cleo. In the same newspaper article, it also mentioned that Cleo said that he had not even been down to Dover in like 2 years. I think this side of the house actually looks the worst. I will add that my husband has made a model of the house for them to take when they're trying to do meetings and discuss maybe getting it restored and all, but it looks like it may be beyond that. And I will insert a picture of the model that he made to show you. And now we'll head on over to the cemetery. We're actually starting to see more ruts and bad places in the road as we get farther along. As we continue our drive to the cemetery, I will mention not only is Cleo buried here, but his mom and dad and a little 2-year-old brother, as well as his paternal grandparents and great-grandparents. Cleo also has a niece that is buried here, his sister's child. Well, as you can see, we made it to the cemetery. It is called Hicks Cemetery. You actually see the markings on the signs real well on how to get here, but I will mention that you do not need to come in a car. We thought our car would make it okay, and it did, but it was so rough. It should be a truck, and a 4-wheel drive truck if that would be the best. So no more exploring like this without taking our 4-wheel drive truck. And we see a flag over here, and we know he was a veteran, so we'll see if this is the one we're looking for or not. And I do see a sign that says Griffin up there. Since this one says Griffin on it, it's got a flag down by it, I'm hoping this is going to be Cleo's grave. Yes, this is Cleo's grave, and he went by Cleo. His name was Sanford Cleo, and he probably did that because his dad's name was Sanford also. And it's a nice marker showing the military emblem up there. But the main thing I want to show you is this picture that is included on there. If I can get a good close view of it. This is actually Cleo's funeral procession, and they stopped by the old home place on their way here to the cemetery that day of his funeral. So kind of a final fitting to a man that just did not want to leave the area. Born in 1923 and died in 2000. And I want to show you one more thing on here for him. I guess I need to turn around this way so you can see it better. Sanford Cleo Griffin, U.S. Army, World War II. I have seen it in papers where they put Cleo Sanford as his name, but I think that's because he was called Cleo so much that they thought Sanford must be his middle name. But when they do a military marker, they do the verification of the original name, and so that shows that his first name really was Sanford. And this is the grave marker next to Cleo's, and it's of his mom and dad, Sanford and Martha Griffin. Well, I did take time to look up all the graves in this cemetery that I wanted to today, as it appears a storm, or a rainstorm I should say, is moving into the area, and the roads are so washed out already. And like I said, we're in a car instead of our four-wheel drive today, and we don't want to take a chance of getting stuck down here, as there's no internet connection that you can pick up to even make a phone call. Won't have a signal, so don't want to get stuck in a place that we can't get out of.